have been having. Certainly, as we said all along, the EU ones are probably the most biting because they were a major market for Syria. We're looking to increase that pressure, certainly. We want to, as we said, choke off the regime's sources of funding. I guess in my answer to Cami, there's the responsibility for the violence against the Syrian opposition rests solely with Assad. And so, whether he's increasingly isolated or not, he needs to simply step down and allow for a democratic transition to take place.
Yeah, but
he's lost all credibility with the Syrian people.
But you do admit that there are armed elements. I mean, you guys have said that, and they could be taking the initiative and
again, I would say that
attacks on the Syrian army.
In Said, I said the other day, this started out as a completely peaceful movement,
right?
And so, that was brutally repressed by the Syrian government, and again, he's taken them down a very dangerous path. We are concerned by the violence on the part of some groups in the opposition. It is concerning, and we believe, as I said, it leads down a very dangerous path.
Dangerous path you fear walking in the long run.
Well, we fear, increased violence, further militarization of the conflict.
Civil war. A term you didn't want to use yesterday.
Well, again, what I think I was careful about saying yesterday is we don't believe we're seeing civil war now, but we're seeing, we don't want to see a further militarization. Yeah, go ahead, Brad, and then, I'm sorry.
No, I was asking.
Yeah, he did have his hands up first. Sorry.
I was going to the same question. The other day, Russian foreign minister described the situation. He said, it looks like civil war. And Lavrov is a pretty close ally to Syria. And so do you share his belief?
I think I addressed, sure.
Secondly, if so, why Ambassador Ford still intend to go back to Syria, if the situation as such?
Well, as I said, we are very concerned about the increase in violence. We don't condone violence on the part of anyone in Syria. Certainly, it plays into Assad's hands, this idea that there's a civil war. He's called this all along. He says he's fighting an armed insurrection when, in fact, he's slaughtering innocent protesters. And so, we don't believe we're there yet, but we are concerned that, and not surprised, frankly, but concerned by this violence on the part of some groups in the opposition. Yeah, Brad. You had another question about Ford, and then Ford. We've said all along that we think that he's playing a very important role in the country as an observer and bearing witness to what's going on there. Yep. Sure. Finally.
Can I have you address this notion that the Syrians are accepting the Arab League proposal in principle with the amendments? I know he referred to it. Have you guys seen these or heard the same thing from the Arab League?
No, we've seen we've seen reports that they've agreed in principle to allow observers in the country, but we've seen no signs that they're honoring that agreement.
Okay,
anyway.
and the number of observers, I think originally it was proposed to be about 500, and now it's down to something like 40.
I'm sorry, I missed 40, right?
And I think before it was supposed to be about 500. Do you know how this change has come about? And
I don't.
Okay,
I don't.
and
I would refer you to the Arab League. We would like a robust presence of international observers on the ground as a way to bear witness to what the Syrian government's doing.
And just lastly, as this deadline comes, even if the Syrians agree to it, would you be skeptical of their intentions to honor it?
Yes.
Considering how many times?
Yes.
I would hope so, but you were still referring to the deadline, so I was wondering if there's any belief anywhere in this government here that this regime has any intentions of honoring the Arab League proposal.
Which is exactly why we believe they've lost all credibility, and that's why we believe Assad needs to step down and allow for democratic transition to take place. We've seen this all along over the past weeks and months, where it was Turkey, now it's the Arab League, where outside parties or countries or organizations have tried to step in and mediate this, and have only been spurned by the Syrian government.
Let's follow up on
So,
Brad's.
so yeah,
Yep.
just I think he's probably going to ask the same thing. If all of these these mediation processes have essentially been stalling tactics for the Syrians, would you suggest for anybody else to engage in this process now that?
Well, you know, the flip side of that is, you know, when you witness the kind of abhorrent violence on a daily basis being carried out by the regime, you know, it's, you know, if there's any way to stop the violence, get the government to stop its attacks against civilians, we would support that. Yes,
Just to follow up on Brad's question, considering that tomorrow is the deadline, it's Saturday, should we expect as a result, if the Syrians don't comply and it expires, that the President of the United States would come out sometime next week to say that the Syrian president has lost his legitimacy to rule, like he did with President Mubarak and Gaddafi, clearly?
We've done that.
Now, the president, would he address the public and say, you know, time for
Well,
him to leave now?
we've issued a presidential statement, but no. You know, that horse has left the barn, if you will. Yeah.
The horse is
Follow up to the question asked yesterday about gazette notification by India on the nuclear liability law. Have
Are
you
we
been
done
able-
with Syria? Yeah, sure.
There was a report out that shows that a lot of the websites in Syria are being hosted by U.S., Canadian companies, including some ministry websites. Is this administration looking into that, whether U.S. companies are violating some sanctions here?
We are, to be honest, Cami, the reason I have a quizzical look on my face is because I'm aware of reports about U.S. technology being used, you know, as a way to monitor or target human rights activists. That doesn't appear to be what you're addressing.
No. This apparently is websites belonging to the government being hosted by servers in the U.S., Canada, and Germany, and they're American companies. One of them's a U.S.-based company called SoftLayer.
It's a good question. I'll take the question. I'm not sure that it's in violation. I know on the other question that I just raised, which we're talking about technology being used to surveil, you know, dissidents and human rights activists. You know, that is something we take very seriously and are looking into. I believe the Commerce Department has a lead on that. And so, I mean, you might also check with the Commerce Department, but I'll try to find out what we can say about that.
Can we switch to Egypt?
Well, he did have India. Is this about what we talked about yesterday?
Yes.
I still need to get you an answer
Not
for it.
yet.
We're still studying it, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
And this issue was also brought up yesterday during the meeting between the Prime Minister Singh and President in Bali yesterday. Do you know how? Do you know?
I believe so, but I'm waiting for a better readout from it.
Okay.
But I believe it was discussed.
Thank you.
Yeah, in Egypt.
But we're really referring to the White House for
Tens of
confirmation.
thousands of people have been protesting in Egypt against the military, wanting them to cede power. How much do you share the Egyptians' concern that the military is really not serious about ceding power?
Well, look, we're, you know, we're what, just over a week away from parliamentary elections. And, you know, the transitional government, led by the SCAF, the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, has committed itself to carrying out a transition to free and fair election of a civilian-led government. And, you know, we believe that should take place and should take place in a timely manner. You know, we're encouraging them to move in a way that addresses the demands of the Egyptian people. We're well aware of these concerns that you cited and these protests, and we want to see, you know, the transition move forward in a way that respects individual human rights, such as freedom of expression and freedom of association.
Secretary Clinton, in a speech last week, alluded to the Egyptian military when she said, if over time the most powerful political force in Egypt remains a room full of unelected officials, they will have planted the seeds for future unrest, and Egyptians will have missed an historic opportunity. And she also said, in Egypt, we look to them to lay out a clear roadmap and urge them to abide by it. I mean, are you seeking a clear roadmap for transition to democracy from the Egyptians?
First of all, I completely agree with what the Secretary said, obviously. You know, she was saying very clearly that they would miss an historic opportunity if they let this moment pass to have real democratic change, and one that's in keeping with the spirit that was expressed in Tahrir Square months ago. last winter. And, we are working with the Egyptian government. We're offering our support, but ultimately this is an Egyptian process. But, and I think she made very clear in that speech, we are ready to help them in supportive ways, not any one party but or element, but to help the process be as free and transparent as possible.
But you haven't got that roadmap yet that she referred to, and you would expect one from the military outlining exactly and when. I mean,
I just think we want to
rather
see, they're navigating a very difficult path right now, fraught with challenges, but, we want to see them move forward in a way that's in keeping with the desires of the Egyptian people. Yeah, come on.
Any concerns about the Muslim Brotherhood participating in this election?
I think we've talked about that before, that, it's not so much if the political party wants to engage in a democratic and peaceful way, then we don't have a problem.
And has sorry, one more.
That's okay.
There are reports that an Assistant Secretary of State, Jacob Wallace, met with members of the Muslim Brotherhood this week about their participation in the election. Do you have any readout on that?
I don't. Can I take that question?
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
On Bahrain, on the travel alert, why are Americans increasingly becoming under more severe scrutiny at the airport?
My understanding with that travel alert is that it's just a reissuance. There's nothing particularly new to the situation there. That it's basically the same wording that was already out there that we are concerned about. I can't remember. I read it this morning before coming down here, but that we are concerned that it's a very volatile situation, remains a volatile situation on the ground, and we want to call American citizens' attention to that.
So there is no particular case or cases. There are no particular cases.
It doesn't
that
reflect.
prompted you to do that?
It doesn't reflect a new development or a new assessment. No.
Is the government of Bahrain is unhappy with your statements from this podium over the past couple of weeks on Bahrain? Could that be it?
Again, this doesn't reflect anything new. So.
Okay, and finally, are you still raising the issues of what's going on in Bahrain on a daily basis? Because now the government is spinning it as just a sectarian pro-Iran event rather than
absolutely, we remain very
legitimate.
concerned about the rise in tension in Bahrain. We now have an ambassador on the ground, and that's certainly helpful. We continue to meet with NGOs and human rights advocates. We're also directly engaged with the Bahraini government on our concerns and on these issues. We look for the work of the Bahrain Independent Commission of Inquiry that I believe is supposed to come out in a few weeks.
A few weeks? I thought it was November 23rd.
I thought it was delayed, but I'll check.
End of the month.
You may be right. I may have overstated it.
Okay.
I don't have the date in front of me, so
Another subject?
I just know it was delayed. Sorry.
Another subject?
Yeah, sure.
A controversy going on about the resignation of the Pakistani ambassador to the U.S. Over a memo from Admiral Mullen, and also in Pakistan now it has become a big issue. My question is that if this department is aware of his resignation or about that memo that
I'm sure somebody called. I didn't. You're aware of.
that President Zardari has written a memo and given to the
Right.
ambassador here to be delivered to the White House. What I'm asking you is, do you believe and feel that President Zardari's government was under attack from the military coup? And also now, if there is a military coup in Pakistan, military has to oust two people, not just Prime Minister but also President.
Let me just stop you there. I'm not going to engage in speculation, just to say that we very clearly support the democratically elected government of Pakistan as well as its constitutional processes. You asked about Ambassador Haqqani's status. Our understanding is that he's still the ambassador of Pakistan to the United States, and we continue to have regular interactions with him, as we do with a number of people within the Pakistani government. Again, this is I understand this is a big story in Pakistan. It's partly a domestic story. yeah, well, I'll treat it as such. I mean, we remain in contact with